Welcome to Bad Dog Agility, a podcast helping you reach all of your dog agility goals. Whether it's competing under the bright lights of the televised finals at Westminster or successfully navigating a homemade course in your own backyard, we'll bring you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
The show starts with your hosts, Jennifer, Esteban, and Sarah.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 362. This podcast is brought to you by Synovitin OA. Hey dog lovers, is your furry friend limping or struggling to enjoy agility like they used to? It might be osteoarthritis, OA, a common source of pain and mobility issues in dogs that's driven by inflammation in their joints. Synovitin OA is a groundbreaking one-time injection into the arthritic joint that targets the very cells causing the pain and inflammation. The benefits are huge. With Synovitin OA, relief can last up to 1 full year with just one simple treatment, dramatically improving your dog's quality of life. And since it works only in the joint, there aren't any systemic side effects that are so common with daily drugs and injections, so you can be assured it's safe for your dog. Don't let your dog suffer from the pain of arthritis. Visit activedognow.com to learn more about Synovitin OA and give your dog the gift of long-lasting pain-free movement. Studied in canine elbows, Synovitin OA is given by authorized veterinarians. Temporary discomfort in treated joints may occur. Talk to a treating veterinarian near you for more information, including what to expect following treatment, and visit www.activedognow.com. Hello, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about the AKC National Agility Championships that just happened this past weekend. As always, we have on the podcast Jennifer Crank. This time, she's going to be doubling as a guest versus a co-host because she is one of the newly crowned champions. Congratulations, Jen.
Thank you so much. I'm actually excited to be a guest this time. A little less pressure. I just got to answer the questions and speak of my experience.
Exactly. And joining her on the podcast, we also have Abbey Beasley, who is also in Ohio, who happens to be Jen's best friend and is joining us today as the 12-inch National Agility Champion. Congratulations, Abbey.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on the podcast.
So, Abbey, I wanted to start off talking to you just a little bit about kind of your background in agility, since we have not had you on the podcast before, and kind of an introduction to you for our audience. So can you give us a little bit of information about your history in the sport, the dogs that you've run? This is your first National Agility Champion title, although you have earned a preferred National Agility Champion title. So just kind of give us a little background.
So I started the sport when I was 8 years old. I started with Jen's mom, Susan, working at the local training facility called Wild Weavers. I began to teach agility when I was about 16 or 17 for Jen at Incredipaws. And I have trained and competed with many breeds, mostly Shelties. I think most people know me for my Shelties, but I've also trained Jack Russells, Border Collies. I've handled Irish Setters. So all kinds of breeds, all shapes and sizes.
And so this year at Nationals, you kind of had, I guess, two dogs that really caught my eye, because you had your young dog who won the challengers round, which for those who are not familiar, it's kind of a big deal because it's a winner take all wild card round for dogs who did not make it into the finals due to like one fault in preliminaries. I totally forgotten. What's that dog's name?
Superstar.
Yes, Superstar. Okay, so Superstar won the challengers round, which is super exciting. And then it was your more experienced dog, Swindle, who won the National Agility Championship. So you had two dogs in the finals. Can you tell us a little bit about those two dogs?
So Superstar is just over 2 years old. She is very appropriately named. She lives up to it on a regular basis. She has a very old soul. Agility is just kind of easy for her. She qualified for nationals pretty quickly, and I decided I'd take her since I was taking Swindle as well as a couple of my others. And I just brought her in with no expectations. You know, it's her first real big event. I wasn't sure how she would handle the environment, but she handled it with grace and dignity like she does pretty much everything else. She was amazing that weekend. She ran 3 out of 4 clean. She actually took second to Swindle in Premier, which I thought was pretty cool. I've never taken first and second in a round at nationals before. And then her only fault was knocking a bar. So fortunately, we were able to make it to the challengers round. The course was made for her. She excelled on it and stepped up to the plate like she does in a lot of other ways. So it was kind of crazy to get to take her to finals at just 2 years old. And what was crazier was the fact that I was competing against her with Swindle, who at 9.5 also was on a roll that weekend. So both dogs really excelled in the preliminary rounds, and the weekend just kept continuing to get better and better and better. And I was like, surely this is going to have to end eventually. And it didn't.
Right. It ended with a win.
I know. It's crazy.
And Swindle is the dog that you have been competing with most recently at the Agility World Championships, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so how many years has she gone to AWC?
So Swindle has been on the AWC team 4 times.
And then I know, Jen, you often breed Shelties, and lots of y'all's dogs are related. So how are y'all's dogs related to each other?
So Swindle and Bee have the same father, which is Swift. So a lot of people that have known me for a while know Swift. So they are both Swift kids. And then Superstar is a repeat of the exact breeding of Bee. So same mother and same father, so another Swift kid, but actually same mother too. So hopefully those genes and that line, Superstar can just continue to follow the amazingness that Bee is, and if not more so, because she's already getting it at such a young age.
Right. All right. So let's talk about the weekend and I guess the path that took you through the prelims and into the finals. So Abbey, starting with you, I guess, kind of what were your results from the preliminary rounds, and maybe some of your thoughts on actually we'll come back to the interesting aspects of like course design, because I think that can be a little bit more roundtable, but just kind of take us through the results that you had leading up to the finals.
So the weekend started off with Swindle and Premier. We were the 5th dog on the line, so we started off with a bang. Fortunately, she had a great run. I mean, she was arguably flawless on her run, and she set the fastest time and was able to maintain that throughout the rest of the day. Star also, as I mentioned earlier, was clean in Premier. She ran near the end, and she ended up taking 2nd to Swindle, which I thought was pretty awesome.
So how much did you win for getting 1st and 2nd?
I think just under $400, I think.
Yeah. It's funny because we always kind of forget. I always forget that aspect of nationals because, like, I don't know, you kind of imprint with like your first nationals, right? So I still think of nationals I know that it's not this way, but I still think about like the state team tournament and all of that kind of stuff.
I love that.
I know.
Right.
I hope that comes back.
Yes, I want that.
Yes, exactly. I really like that too. And then even with the Premier, like I tend to think of it as another warm-up round because it doesn't count for the National Agility Championships. But with the number, with it being a large number of dogs, the prizes, can get decent. Yeah. So congratulations.
Thank you. As far as Swindle's performance, she was 3 clear. She was spot on perfect at her age. I was kind of just going into nationals with the hope of having good runs, solid runs. And we're just at this kind of twilight part of her career where I'm just enjoying running her. We're kind of like a well-oiled machine now. So we just enjoyed every run and we kept cranking out the clean runs. And fortunately, we were able to make our way to finals in 2nd place cumulatively. And then Superstar had a little bit of a different track. So I have been going to AKC National since 2009. I have never had a dog have the nightmare hit the first bar of round 1 until Star.
Oh no!
Star had a fantastic Premier run, and then in her first or on her round 1 run, she took out the first bar on an otherwise really good run. And I'm like, well, it had to happen eventually. It only makes sense it would happen with the 2-year-old baby dog.
Right.
Did you know that it had happened right away as soon as it happened, or not?
Yes. Oh yeah. She
you
took
knew
it
right
out
away.
Yes, she took it out with style. I mean, it wasn't like a light hit. She went through it. Like, I don't know what she was looking at, but I don't think it was the jump.
How did you hold it together then to put together a clean run? Because I would have been a little bit of a basket case.
Well, I was just kind of like, it happened. I can't do anything about it. We're just going to have a good solid run. We're going to, work her teeter, make sure she has a nice solid teeter, invest in her future, and then we'll just take it from here. I was hopeful that I could do 2 clean rounds on the same day. So since that run was on Friday, I then had 2 more runs on Saturday to try to get her to challengers. And I was hopeful she could do 2 clean rounds. So going into Saturday, my goal was just 2 solid, good, clean runs. Like, I know she's pretty fast. I knew she had a good shot at placing, within the top 4, if I could get her through those 2 clean rounds. And she managed to do it. She actually won jumpers. Which
awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
Did you run that one first?
Yes.
So then you knew that hybrid just needed to be clean.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. And so then she came in through challengers and then met up with Swindle in the finals.
Yes.
I want to jump in with a couple of questions here. So you mentioned that Superstar is 2 years old, and how old is Swindle now?
She is 9.5.
9.5. Okay. Wow. I mean, still running amazingly well. And I was looking at the results here. You mentioned also Superstar winning jumpers. And for people who are listening, well, and you also said Swindle was the number 2 seed.
Yes.
So I think what I want to point out is that Cynthia Horner and her amazing dog Nimble were the top seed in the finals, and they're phenomenal dog. And
previous national agility champion.
That's right. And you beat them in jumpers. It looks like I have the results in front of me. 22.2 for Superstar. And then second place was Nimble, 22.66. And then you had Swindle coming in 4th that round, 23.77. So what was it like to win that round with Superstar with the 22.2 coming ahead of a dog like Nimble? Was that at all on your mind or radar? You're like, oh my God, we did this thing?
So it was pretty incredible. Superstar's never had the chance to run against Nimble since Cynthia and I don't live in the same area. And Star's so young, she's never been to a national event to compete against Nimble. And I know Star is fast, relative to my own dog. She holds her own and definitely usually beats has faster times. But I wasn't quite sure if she was Nimble type of fast. She is very fast, but she's also very efficient, which I think is where she gains a lot of her time and speed on course, is while being able to maintain speed, she can also turn very tight. That is something that Swindle has always struggled with. Swindle maintains speed by flanking and turning wide, whereas Star can gear down and then shift back up really quickly and really easily. So to see that she beat Nimble was honestly a shock. Nimble is a complete anomaly, an incredible dog. And I was just flabbergasted and stunned that Star was able to not only hold her own against her, but actually run faster than her in jumpers.
Yeah, that's super cool because Sarah and I, we did, while you guys were traveling to the event, we put together like this emergency last minute podcast to help people.
Strategy guide.
Yeah, kind of prepare for the event. And one of the things that I talked about was if you find yourself in the final, but there's this amazing standout dog, right? And they're sitting in the last position and they have running contacts or you don't have running contacts, or you know that 9 times out of 10, this dog is going to beat you unless they make a mistake, that maybe you should not be doing things like pushing your contacts or letting your dog figure out the weave pulls on their own and things like that. And maybe preferentially going for a clean run as opposed to the fastest possible, pushiest, most aggressive run that you can put together. And, whatever happens as far as the last dog running. But your situation is so interesting because you have Swindle, who's like the veteran, right? But maybe not putting up the kind of times, at least just in that one jumpers run. And it has to play into your calculations that it's standard and not jumpers, and that Superstar beat Nimble in jumpers. But what kind of impact, if any, did it have on your planning and thinking to have 2 kind of very different dogs, both running in the final, but also having Nimble there in the background, sitting on the top seed? They're going to run last. What was that like? And your 2 dogs have running contacts. So
both of my dogs have a running dog walk and 8-frame. And then they both stop on the teeter, which of course in finals I didn't ask them to stop. But honestly, as far as planning and strategy goes, I mean, the thing about having a 2-year-old dog in the finals is it's a 2-year-old dog. So you're kind of limited on your options based on the skills that you have. And that particular finals course was pretty challenging. So I had to make up my mind for her based on the skills that I knew she had and where I thought I could be and what I could do to help her. And coincidentally, having Swindle in the finals, she's older, she's more mature, she has a lot more skills at the ready. And I knew that both dogs would be running 6 dogs apart with no break between, no extra break between. So I planned to run Star the way I knew that she had to be run. And then my plan was to, reassess after her run. And if it was fine, then I would continue with that plan with Swindle. And if I needed to change anything, then I would change it with Swindle. But I was pretty confident that the plan that I ran with Star would work well for Swindle because she has more skill and a little bit more independence on backsides and stuff like that. I honestly did not worry about Nimble too much. I mean, I figure if Cynthia runs clean, I can only, it's just going to have to shake out the way it shakes out. Like my run needs to just be the best that it can be. And then we'll just see how the results, follow. Swindle and Nimble have gone up against each other many times. And Nimble, as I said, is an incredible dog. So if she's clean, she is very tough to beat. Very tough to beat. And on that course, while it was challenging, there were a lot of speed components and ground speed components. So I honestly don't know if Superstar could have held her own. Because usually she makes up time on turns. So it was kind of like, I just got to run 2 really good runs, see how it shakes out, see how it pans out, and, just be happy with what I can put out there.
Right. I think a lot of competitors can, especially when they get their first fast dog or maybe their fastest dog that they've ever had, can get really bogged down in like the possibilities. And suddenly you're getting ready for your run and you're not thinking about what you need to do and where you need to be and the timing of your cues. You're thinking about the possibilities, right? And what might happen. And I feel like you did such an amazing job with 2 dogs running in the same height class, so close together as well. I see that Superstar ended up 4th with a fault. So what was Superstar's fault?
She took things full circle and she hit a bar, a very weird bar, just like she did in round 1. She kind of tripped and fell through the bar, which my guess is just inexperience on her part. And, running in that finals atmosphere would be my guess.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the finals course being a little bit more on the difficult side. And I got to say a couple of things. First, I watched everything live on AKC TV and the camera work was terrible. Right. It was zoomed in so tight that it was really impossible to see the course. And I made a point of not reviewing the course map before I watched the run. And so I really had no idea what was going on, except for that one part that everybody who was there knows about, where a lot of dogs were making mistakes. It was maybe a little bit more technical. And just based on that alone and the faults that were happening, I felt like the finals course was good.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah. So let's transition a little bit to talking about the course design. And I wanted to get your thoughts. First, let's start with Abbey. And I want to hear your thoughts on that finals course compared to maybe other years or other types of events that you've been doing recently. What were your thoughts?
In my opinion, the finals course was tricky. It had a lot of challenging elements, but I didn't think it was inappropriate. I did think that the finals course resembled more of what we've seen in the challengers rounds in years past. Interesting. And the challengers round resembled more of what we've seen in the finals rounds in years past. Like we've been seeing trickier, harder, more complicated courses in challengers.
Right.
And then in finals, it's usually been more, I don't want to say straightforward, but it hasn't been quite so technical. So it was almost like the 2 courses flip-flopped places. Right. But like I said, I didn't think either were inappropriate. I mean, the challengers round really allowed the fastest dog to get through to then go into the finals round, which then allowed the most skilled dog to succeed. So I thought it was challenging. I was a little worried about the backside, out of the tunnel that was under the A-frame for a lot of people. Like I was worried that part would be tricky for a lot of people. But it seemed to actually go pretty well. And a lot of people figured it out near the end of the round.
Right.
Yeah. I totally agree. I really liked the finals course. I like having more challenge there. I think that what makes agility interesting is the handling, is the choices, is the variation, and it's not just raw speed. Like agility is much more complicated than just taking obstacles, right? The And that's what makes it agility. So I really like that aspect of it.
I like
And
a course that's going to reward a good handler,
right,
who understands
and
how to create the kind of lines that your dog needs to get through maximally fast.
right. And not just the lines, but just the handling skill itself. And so, as soon as I saw the finals, I really liked it. Jen, I guess what were your thoughts, as well on the courses, having to come through the challenge round with B, and then winning the finals round. Like, how did you feel about those courses both before and after?
With the fastest time in all heights.
Yeah.
Point that out for the finals.
I share a lot of the same thoughts as Abby with regard to the finals course. The one couple things that I might add would, on the finals course, the one thing I will say about it is I typically think in past years you've had like moderate challenge throughout the entire course. So if it's a 20 obstacle course, like everything is an appropriate challenge. Like there's kind of everywhere through that you have to sort of work it with a moderate level of challenge. Where this course, I felt like the beginning was easy and the end was easy. And then it was just really, 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 really hard in the middle. So it's like it averaged out to be like on point with many other runs. But like if you watched people walk it 1 through 4, people would walk like one time and be like, okay, got it. And almost everybody did the same thing. And then once you made it to the tunnel in the corner, the last, what was that, like 5 or 6 obstacles basically were just kind of a perimeter, all done right. Tunnel, dog walk, weave, jump, tire, jump. So like the ending was pretty straightforward, but that middle was so difficult. So I feel like that one section was an above average difficulty to balance out a little bit more speed on the ends. And I don't know good or bad. I mean, it kind of gives the chance for the dogs to both open up and run, but then also the technical part in the middle. It was a course that for me played very well into B's strength. So when I saw the challengers map, we'll go back to challengers because that's what I had to run first. I actually was very deflated about the course. Jean, who is B's co-owner, is my biggest cheerleader. And when we found out when she was in challengers and I found out who was in challengers the night before, I was like, I can't do this. I can't beat those dogs. Those dogs are too fast. Those dogs are too good. Those are really good dogs. Like I'm first in the running order. And Jean was like, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. Come on, be positive. And then when the course came out, she comes over and goes, this isn't a good one for us. And I was like, I agree wholeheartedly because it just didn't seem technical enough. I mean, where I think B is going to excel over several dogs, not all the dogs in challengers, is I consider her very skilled, right? Yes. We do AWC, we do EO, we train that level of stuff. So it's like, I need something really hard that she can do that maybe other dogs can't. And that challengers course was just such a run. Like it was just such a run and go fast. And on raw speed, she's going to get beat by the dogs that are bigger than her. She is under 16 inches in a division that goes up to 18. So there's going to be dogs that have 2 inches on her. There's younger dogs in there. There's faster dogs in there. And so in challengers, I really was like disappointed in the course when I saw it, not the course itself, but the course for me. So to be clear, not against the judge, but like the course for me, I was hoping for something harder. As Abby said, it almost is like they could have been flip-flopped. My tactic, my strategy for challengers, to be honest, and I'll just put it out there, was to try to affect all my competitors' mental game by laying out like a really, really awesome, solid run and let them mentally stress over it.
I mean, that was honestly what I was going to say, is that I think that it played to your, like at first it was like, oh my gosh, first dog to run. You don't get to see anybody, et cetera, et cetera. But I seriously thought to myself that, you could put a lot of pressure on other dogs. And then when you ran it, like it was a good run. It was a good time. And, maybe there were dogs that could beat it, but they would have to push to beat it. And I thought that's the run that could do it.
Yeah, it wasn't her best run. I mean, there were dogs that beat her time, but had faults. So like, I know there's at least one dog, Carol and Ironman, had a smoking run. I mean, smoked my time and had an unfortunate dog walk call. So I knew her run was beatable, but my goal was just to kind of push the mental game because the course itself wasn't going to be perfect for us. But then in finals, like I said, it was like that one difficult part. The other seemed pretty straightforward. So in the end, I won both of them. So the courses were great. I loved it. It was perfect. But my thoughts were kind of very different looking at the maps. The other thing that I did think was interesting is more than any other year, I felt there was a very drastic change in the courses that we saw in the prelims and the courses that we saw in finals. I'm not sure, again, I'm not sure how I feel about it in terms of good or bad, but I always felt like, okay, you had your prelims and then, okay, let's add a little splash of challenge in finals. And so like the dogs that got to finals were running a course that was similar to what qualified them to get there. And this year, I thought there was a huge change in what we saw in prelims and what we saw in finals. And I don't know if it's good or bad. Like, I don't know if I feel like that's how it should be. It's finals. It should be hard. Or if I feel like it's super unfair to like qualify the dogs for finals on one style of course. And then when they get there, it's like, haha, joke's on you. We're going to change the sport now. And we're going to do this. So I don't recall such a change from prelims into finals as I felt like we saw this year. So I think maybe it's that, yes, the finals course was difficult, but also maybe the prelims needed to have a little bit more challenge. Like it was a drastic divide, I felt like, on both ends. So that was kind of my thoughts on the courses, both the prelims and then the challengers and finals.
Yeah, I agreed with you there. And I was looking, and I believe, because when we did this podcast right before nationals, we were looking at like the number of clean runs versus the number of dogs that go to the finals, right? And so like last year, we just took like the 20-inch class because it's the biggest. And like the vast majority of dogs that went 3 clean made the finals. It was like there were only 5 dogs that ran 3 clean that did not make the finals last year. But this year, there were quite a few more that went 3 clean and did not make the finals. So more people were running 3 clean. And so I agree with you. I would say like I'll be a little bit stronger, I guess, and say unequivocally that I think that the prelim should be a little bit harder, not that the finals should be less hard. Like I did like the challenge of the finals course. And I think it reflects in the results too. I guess.
I was going to say that too. There were a lot less clean runs in finals in past years. Like we, in the 8-inch class, which I think traditionally, I have no statistics, that's you guys in front of me, but I think traditionally in the 8-inch class, there's usually a good number of clean runs, like 50% of the 8 inches. And there were two 8-inch dogs are in clean in finals, 3 12s.
Isn't there 124?
Yeah, I think maybe 2 24s. But I guess percentage wise, I mean, you don't typically think I'm going to go into finals, I'm going to fault, and I'm still going to come away with the top 4 placement in trophy and Premier Cup invite.
Yes.
And that happened. So I think that's just a testament to the difficulty of the finals. But again, is it that the finals course was that hard, or it's just that the dogs that were in finals weren't prepared for that type of challenge because of the prelim courses being maybe a tinge easy? So I think if you had made those prelims a little harder, maybe some of those just faster, less skilled dogs wouldn't have actually gotten through, and maybe some of the more skilled dogs. So I don't know, it's always very fascinating. I think that I like that, I guess, from year to year there is a little bit of change, because you're like, on any given day, right? Like any given day, any given Sunday, dogs have an opportunity to do things that maybe you didn't think so based on the past.
I think that's super interesting. I hear what you're saying. We always look at data and Q rates and things like that. And I understand what you're saying, because the Q rates, I think across the board, were pretty good for this year. Whereas in past years, there was always that one round that was an outlier and lower, right? Like in the 20s or 30s or something like that for at least a couple of the height classes. I got to say, it doesn't bother me as much. And I'm not saying that it bothers you. I'm just saying that it doesn't bother me at all to ask this of dogs, to be able to handle both kinds of things, like the technical, but also you have to have some speed. And ultimately, like when you look at the list of champions, I feel like that's they did a pretty good job of figuring out who the best was. I'm not one who's like, we need to select for the fastest dogs who don't necessarily have the best handling or the best contacts or weave entries or things like that. But I'm also not on the other side where I want like the slowest, steadiest dogs. I do want some speeds. There's always a little bit of
I think it was along those lines interesting. If I'm correct, there was not a single height where the top seed won. So that true, just like fastest dog coming in. I think all 5 of the winners came in from being seated a little bit lower, which I found fascinating because it's like that balance of like skill and speed. I know it's true for all but the 24. The 24, I don't recall if if Eclipse was the top seed or not. But I don't believe she was. So yeah, that's kind of the same thing of like, okay, we want the balance. We want you to be able to be consistent enough to do 3 clear and get in there, but skilled enough to handle some technical aspect. But that was something we were talking about is unfortunately for them, none of the top seeds ended up taking the win.
Right.
As you said, Sarah, the finals course was very much a handler's course.
Right.
You had to have a good understanding of dogs' lines and a good understanding of where you needed to be and when in order to accomplish getting those lines. And I definitely think that it played to some handlers' strengths. So it wasn't just about the fastest dog as much as the fastest dog with the most knowledgeable handler who was able to set good enough lines and get the dog around.
Right.
Yeah. I think in general that's true. I can't remember how exactly each top seed went down. The only one that I can recall off the top of my head is the 8-inch top seed, which I believe was Gabby, and that was just a bar down. Otherwise, they would have won.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, 8-inch had a bar down, 12-inch had an off course, 16 had a refusal.
Okay.
20-inch. I don't remember.
That's because you were a national champion by then.
You were ready. You guys were out celebrating.
Yeah. Popping champagne.
That's right.
Well, the thing that I was thinking about in terms of difficulty and how it affects, I guess, the finals course is, I suppose that there is an excitement to be had when you're watching dogs run and seeing, are they going to beat the time? How close are they to the winning time? They're within hundredths of a second. Oh my gosh, who's the winner? Like, I can understand there being, I guess, a spectator appeal to that. But at the same time,
because they do such a poor job of throwing up the times, even in the televised, they don't do an amazing job. It's much easier to follow along the action, and then someone goes off course, so you're like, oh, okay, it's not perfect. They're probably not going to win.
Well, when you're there live, they're pretty good about always stating what the time to beat is. Like even before the dog,
the audience is viewing.
I agree. But the majority of the audience viewing got a crap view anyway, right? The majority of the audience viewing could not follow anything because of the views that ESPN chooses to put. So I'm not talking about that because they couldn't follow anything anyway. Mm-hmm. Right. But the people that were watching live, like, I understand that there's an excitement building with like in previous years when like times are really, really close and you get like the top 4 or maybe the top 2 or 3 are all within hundredths of a second to each other. Mm-hmm. But it's also a little, I guess, I don't know. It's almost like frustrating. Like, if you literally lose the national championship by like 0.05, like there's a little bit of like frustration there, right? And like one, just the sticking the neck out over the finish line could have been the difference, right? But here I felt like you can see in the results that first and second place were actually never super duper close to each other, right? Because the difficulty of the course, like, again, meant that it was more about the handling than it was about just having the fastest dog. And like, even some of the people that ran clean, they may have run clean, but not necessarily smooth. Right? Especially in that highly technical spot. There was a lot.
I feel called out. I feel like you're talking about high five. Like I feel this is a personal attack on clean, but not super smooth in the middle section.
That's true. I kind of forgot that high five ran clean because in my mind,
I know,
like, as
me
soon as
too. Don't you worry, Sarah. Me too. It's a sore subject.
Yes, exactly. But there were lots of runs like that where people held it together, but it was not super smooth because, again, like, this was a handler's course and it was about like the handling and stuff like that. And I think the result of that is there is a very strong feeling that the dog who won was clearly the best dog. Right? It wasn't like just this tiny, tiny little, millisecond of a difference or whatever, or, a call or a not call. It was like the dogs that won handled that course beautifully, And so I like that about this course.
Amongst the clean runs, I would say.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting, Jen, that you're still a little sensitive about it because for the first time in many, many years, we started as a blog, like Bad Dog Agility, the blog And then the podcast came a little bit later. But at first it was a blog. And the whole reason it started was there was one sequence at a tryouts event that I was at. And everyone messed up this one thing. And I was like, this is the most basic. It's not that it was the most basic thing, but I don't know. I just felt like there was a pretty clear way that everyone should handle it. And everyone, regardless of handling system, who was successful there, all handled it the same way. And so I wanted to do an article about it. And so from the beginning, Bad Dog Agility has always been very analytical and very technical and handler focused and that sort of thing. And I have not had a course get me so excited as this section in years. And so, of course, I'm going to put something out there. And so probably, Jen, you should look at it just so you could get good at handling,
Take some notes for next year.
Yeah. It'll help you out. But it was a super cool part of the course. I think, Sarah, for the show notes, you can attach a course map so people can click on it and you can see what we're talking about. And we're not even going to tell you what part it is. You're just going to go through the map and you're going to be like, oh, okay, maybe it's here. Or if you don't recognize it, then, maybe you need to.
Either you're really, really good
or you're really, really bad or you're really, really a beginner. Yeah. I admit I kind of jumped the gun and started talking about course design because the other handler that we have not yet really talked about here is, of course, Jennifer Crank and B with the big win in 16-inch. And it's a big win because we were doing research for the Wednesday wrap-up, which went out this past Wednesday.
Yep.
And it had been years since a breed other than a Border Collie has won the 16-inch height class. And I remember a long time ago where it was a little bit of controversial. It was a little bit of a sore spot between groups of handlers, and not just on the Sheltie 16-inch side, but also a little bit on the Border Collie side. So I'll say that I ran a tiny Border Collie. Her name was Rook, an I Spy Border Collie, and she jumped 20 inches her entire life except for the last year, maybe two, when she was like, I don't know, 9 or 10 or 8 or something like that. And I just always ran her at 20, but she actually measured into 16-inch. She was 17 and 7/8 inch legitimately. And in the AKC, you need to be 18 and under, right, to jump 16. I just jumped her at 20 because she could. She looked perfectly fine and natural. And that's where all the Border Collies ran.
You run Border Collies at 20.
In my mind at that time, right, the 16-inch class is not really for Border Collies unless you have a Border Collie who's even smaller than Rook was. But once you're like Rook size and you jump 20-inch, no problem. You want to be out there with the 20-inch Border Collies, right? That's your height class. And at the end, I was like, oh, like you're getting an extra year or two of going to regular trials and things. And it was a renaissance for her to come down to 16 inches and run it. And she looked faster and she looked happy. And, she was never a bar knocker even at 20 or 24, 26, whatever it was back in the day for trials types events. But she loved jumping at 16 inches. I'm just saying all of this to kind of put the listener into that mindset where there's always been a little something psychologically about Border Collies in the 16-inch class. I feel like today, though, it's perfectly fine. You have a dog, they legitimately measure into 16 inches. Like, people don't really think about it as much. However, I will give you the perspective as a non-Sheltie person of Sheltie people where it must be like, hey, this has been our class for so long and so many years, and now the smaller size Border Collie has become wildly popular in a way that they were not 30 years ago, right? And I really think that that's been a direct result of sports, not just agility, right? Probably like flyball, other sports as well, where there's been some selection in breeding towards smaller Border Collies. And so you see them more often, in my opinion, than you did at the very first 10 AKC Nationals, to throw it out there, right? And a lot of those dogs who did measure into 16-inch, and me and Rook, we were not the only ones, right? There were other dogs who legitimately measured into 16-inch, but did most of their NACs at 20 or even 24 inches if they were competing for these international teams, right? And
until the AKC made the rule that you had to jump in your measured jump height. Right. And I remember,
in fact, I think that's why we jumped at 16, because I was forced to.
Oh yeah. And right? people did not like it. Like, we got,
people were still upset.
They were like snipped with us. Like, and I'm like, I have no choice I can not come to nationals or I can jump in 16.
That's right.
This is her height. And she didn't even look big, right? She looked tiny, but she was Border Collie. So
right. Don't worry. We got what we deserve. The year we made the Challenger round, I think her last year at AKC Nationals, there was this dog. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but they won a world championship. And so that dog was in the Challenger round. So we did not get out of the Challenger round. Don't worry about it. Okay. So I've set all of that up, and now B comes, and after 6 or 7 years of straight Border Collies, and the last Sheltie to win 16-inch was what, 2008?
2009.
Rush, 2009, right?
16 years.
16 years.
Now, it wasn't all Border Collies. I was going to say that wasn't all Border Collies, but it was 16 years since a Sheltie had one.
Right. So it's kind of like the Empire Strikes Back. Of course, this makes the Shelties the evil lords of the Sith. But yeah. So Sheltie back on top. Jen, go. Tell us about
Well, and it's super cool. Rush is her grandsire. So not only was it 16 years, but it was actually her grandsire. So Rush is Swift's father, and then Swift is Bee's father. But I think it's only something that I like follow and care and am passionate about because I'm a Sheltie breeder. I'm a Sheltie person. I'm a Sheltie breeder. Like, I'm not sure that, like, I have a French Bulldog. I don't know the history of French Bulldogs in agility. But I think it's just something that I started so long ago that when I did agility, the 12-inch and the 16-inch class was dominated by Shelties. I mean, there were multiple years, where the world team was 4 Shelties jumping 12, 4 Shelties jumping 16, and then your Border Collies in 24. And that's what it was. And I've lived through this shift where we have seen that completely change, where we've had years where there's only been 1 Sheltie on the team, or there's maybe 1 small and 1 medium. And I don't have a problem with it. It's just such a change from what I've been used to, with the addition of, I think, just a lot of more breeds in general, more breeds coming around. We've seen the addition of the sport mixes in the 16-inch class at AKC. We see the smaller Border Collies. I mean, of those 16 years where a non-Sheltie won, I mean, I was 2 of them with the 16-inch Border Collie. So it's always kind of like, I can't talk poorly about them. I was that person with Pink who has 2 NACs. But it's always just meant so much for me as my breed to like fight for it and say, we are still here. We are still relevant. We still can do it. I got 3rd last year to 2 amazing 16-inch Border Collies, and I was thrilled. I really, really, really thought that's it. I got 3rd place to 2 16-inch Border Collies who are faster than my dog. To me, that was a win. That was a win for Shelties. We were on the podium. I mean, I even said, like, if I don't make it to nationals, like, Bee's done the best that she's done. And I was happy with 3rd. I wasn't sure that there was a chance of her doing better than that. So to come out and to be the Sheltie, to do it and win in the 16-inch class, and have such a big gap. I mean, even in the 12-inch class going to Abbey, we haven't had a Sheltie win in the 12-inch class since 2022, which was Rio. And prior to Rio, it was like another 5 or 6 years before that. So in the history of the last, 15 years in both the 12-inch and the 16-inch class, we haven't seen a lot of Shelties. So for Shelties to win both heights and them to be sisters was like super cool. Go Shelties. And actually in the 16-inch class, it was a Sheltie for 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and then an Aussie for 4th. So for the first time in a very, very, very long time, there was not a Border Collie in the 16-inch top 4, which was shocking to me and amazing to me. And I'm not really sure I have any theory as to why, but I will capitalize on that opportunity for sure.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I was just looking up some statistics that kind of illustrate this transition to Border Collies. So basically, I don't know if there was ever a nationals before 1996, but like if you go to the AKC website and look at the past champions, it starts at 1996. So for the first 11 years, from 1996 to 2007, not a single Border Collie winning the 16-inch class, right? Then you get your first Border Collie in 2008. That's Kate Moreau and Driven as the first, and we're talking about the 16-inch class. So first Border Collie winning the 16-inch class was 2008. Then you have Sheltie, Rat Terrier, Pier Shep, and then you have all Border Collies and an Australian Shepherd starting at 2013. So literally from the time the first Border Collie won to to last year, that's 15 years, and only 5 were not Border Collies. So Border Collies won 2/3 of the time over those last 15 years, and they won 10 of the 11 of the previous 11 years. So it really just kind of shows that dramatic shift of having, there just weren't Border Collies to be winning. There weren't Border Collies in the class to be winning
I also
the class.
think they weren't jumping 16, as you commented.
Oh, you're right.
Because I know Linda Mecklenburg had Awesome, who measured into 16, and I don't think she ever took him to nationals at 16. So similar to what you mentioned, that was the other part, is I don't know that people were jumping their measured height. They were jumping what they were competing or training at. So that might have a factor as well.
And I think that started around 2008, 2009. It was right around there that they made people do their measured height, which I think is a good thing, because I don't like the jump height to be part of the competition, right? Like your choice of jump height is like a strategy, So I like that.
Right. I like it as well, but I kind of like breed diversity as well. I think amongst organizations, obviously the American Kennel Club is about yes, dogs now, all dogs everywhere. That's their general marketing right now that they are doing. But they are also very much about, the purebred, the various purebred breeds that they support in their registries and whatnot. I'm always fascinated by Crufts because of that ABC class, the anything but the collie thing. And for those who don't know, is basically no Border Collies, right? Mm-hmm. And as a group, those dogs will be like a touch slower than all the fast Border Collies, but they're like the best of all the ABCs, right? And so it's a really great fun class to watch, and they're fantastic. And the AKC in its events has tried to do things like that at Westminster at the AKC Invitational, essentially putting quotas on the number of Border Collies, Shelties, but without singling out those breeds, right? They just put a limit for all breeds, knowing that it's going to kind of shake out where you're not going to have a final with 12 Border Collies. At the most, you're going to have 3 or 5 or whatever the rules for that particular competition allow. So we don't have ABC, but we kind of do have ABC. So I think it kind of speaks to all of that. I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah. But B, fantastic job coming out of Challengers. So both of you won Challengers in the same weekend.
Yes, we both won Premier, and we both got second in Premier, and then we both won Challengers, and we both won Finals.
Right. So, I want to know how much money Jen got for Premier.
So I had 5 of my 6 dogs run clean in Premier, and 4 of them have placements. So I got a first, a second, a third, and a fourth. So I'm coming out pretty good.
So now I want to know who paid for dinner that night. Because both of you won.
We did an Airbnb. Yeah. We did an Airbnb and we make dinner at the house. So we go.
They're making healthy food and everything.
Yeah, Sarah joined us. Yeah.
So I did. I joined one night. Yep, I had a Caesar salad with Jen and Abby. So yeah. All right. So I have one last question for the two of you that I was thinking about. So I want to know from y'all's perspective, what happened from the time that Swindle became a national champion in between to the time that B, and then immediately after. How did you manage that?
The celebration and emotion?
Yeah, the celebration, the emotion, being best friends. Jen, did you go and congratulate her, or were you already in your zone and I'm going to have to deal with that later? Or did you have time to go, jump up and down and scream?
For me, it started when Betsy won 8 inches. So yes. Betsy is a student of mine and great friend of us. She's been around and seen us grow up and really an idol for us and all that she's done. So of course we were both screaming for Betsy. And then it was wait a minute, Star's up in 2 dogs. Okay, go focus. And then I'm sitting there watching Abby. So yes, of course, then I was screaming and I was cheering and I was oh, wait a minute, I'm the 3rd dog to run. I've got to focus. And at that point I was kind of okay, we're going to go have a good run. But I'm already ecstatic. At that point I was already so thrilled. I think it helped once again. It helped me to run early in the running order. I was the first dog in Challengers, as we talked about, and the advantage that was, I was the 3rd dog in Finals because I came in from Challengers. So I was okay, great. I think maybe being distracted helped me not obsess and get too in my head. And then go out and run. And I remember being on the podium waiting because I was in the hot seat, just going, can I get off of here so I can go see Betsy and Abby? And I had to stay there. So at that point, I would say for me, it was really after B won, which was very surreal. I still had 2 20s. And I hate to say it, but I was like, I don't even care. Like, do I have to go run them? Like, do they have to run? I don't even care if they do well. They both had great runs, but I was like, I don't even care the outcome at this point. Of course, I said that, and then High Five didn't have that perfect run, and then I was annoyed. But it's like, okay, it's okay, it's okay. And then after the whole thing was over, I was like a whirlwind of like photos and be here. And then AKC was calling us because we weren't in the right spot. So like we had all the reps calling us,
it was Abbey
yelling at us.
Tracking down Jen is what it was.
Okay.
Well,
from my side, we were both not where we were supposed to be.
Oh, I was where I was supposed to be. I had to run around and find you.
But
That's awesome.
And then it was a long drive home.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for y'all. I was so happy for y'all to have that moment together. I mean, I've been kind of a little bit like tangential to a lot of your travel and success, having gone to like AWC and nationals, and I'm always around Jen, and Jen's always around Abby, and so I've gotten to know Abby as well, and so thank you for including me in your Caesar salad dinner and all that kind of stuff. It was a really great time.
Yeah, there was definitely a moment after Betsy and Abby won that I was like, well, this would be too good to be true. Like, it can't possibly happen now. Like, this is too good to be true. So I was like, there's no way. And then it did. So we'll be riding on this high for a while.
Yeah, it'll be hard to recreate this for sure.
Yeah. That's okay. You can enjoy this one for forever. So congratulations to both of you. And Jen, everybody who wants to get a hold of you can always find you, on the podcast and in the VIP program and at Bad Dog Agility. Abby, if people, want to follow you and what you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. That's kind of where I post most about what I'm doing with the dogs and where I'm at and whatnot. I do have an email through the business, which is abby@incredipaws.com. So people can get a hold of me through that if they would like. But otherwise, social media is perfectly fine as well.
And you teach there at Incredipaws, which is in Ohio, for anybody who happens to be local to you.
Correct. Yes.
So as we've been going through the podcast, we've kind of thrown out several of the winners' names as we discussed like how the event went and the flow of challengers and finals and the course design and all of that kind of stuff. But I do want to take a minute and congratulate all of the winners for this year's AKC National Agility Championship. In the preferred height class at 4 inches, we have Kim Black with miniature American Shepherd Kaysen. In preferred 8-inch, we have Kaylee Cundiff and Shelty Zuzu. In the 12-inch class, the preferred 12-inch class, we have Maddie Spiegel with Border Collie Atomic. In the preferred 16-inch class, Sydney Ryan with Border Collie Ego. And in the preferred 20-inch class, Patty Bensine with German Shepherd Dog Bug. And in the regular height class, in the 8-inch class, we have Betsy Lynch with Papillon Lark. In the 12-inch class, of course, Abbey Beasley with Shelty Swindle. In the 16-inch class, again, Jennifer Crank with Shelty B. In the 20-inch height class, Andy Winther with Border Collie Zoom Zoom. And in the 24-inch class, Amelia Geninger and Golden Retriever Eclipse. Congratulations to all of the winners. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited for you guys, and congratulations again.
All right. Thank you.
And that's it for this week's podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Synoviton OA and hititboard.com. Check out the Teeter Teach It, only at hititboard.com. The Teeter Teach It is an easy-to-use tool that controls the amount of tip on your teeter so you can introduce motion to your dog in a gradual way. Go to hititboard.com for the new Teeter Teach It and other training tools and toys. Use discount code BDA10 to get 10% off your order. That's hititboard.com. Happy training.
Thank you for listening to Bad Dog Agility. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, updates, and links to all our socials, just check out our website, www.baddogagility.com. If you haven't already signed up for our email subscription, we would love to have you join the BDA community. Until next time, take care.